Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing related tweets, or of course you can subscribe to the channel Let's Talk Boxing. Let's start off with the lightweight division. A whole bunch of themes to cover today. Bob Arum has said that he wants to see Vasyl Lomachenko face Shakur Stevenson, whether it's at 130, 135, or even at a catch weight. He doesn't mind. It doesn't even need to be for a title. He just believes that it's a pay-per-view fight in its own right. I would be more than happy to see this fight occur. Two superb operators, right? A boxing purist dream. Skill versus skill. Shakur Stevenson does have some unfinished business in the weight category below. It looks like, for whatever reason, even though they're stablemates, the unification fight seems to be stalling. They're not announcing it. Now, I have a sneaky suspicion, without knowing anything, of course, this is just a hunch that I get, that the fact that Oscar Valdez really struggled in his last fight, and I thought he lost to Robson Conceição, would be reason enough for him to want to go back to the drawing board and try to address some of the issues he had against a pure boxer. Because up against another pure boxer in Shakur Stevenson, he may not get the decision that he got last time, which was very, very favourable. I had Robson Conceição winning that fight wide. So perhaps it's Valdez's team that are stalling. Who knows, right? The point is, he needs to face him, really, ideally, to unify the division. After that, if you really want to be considered the best beyond dispute, without a shadow of a doubt, you should really be fighting Robson Conceição too, because the vast majority of boxing hardcore fans felt that Conceição won the fight comfortably. So if you want to prove that you're the best, they're the two fights you need to be looking at. Nonetheless, you wouldn't hold it against him for taking a fight against Lomachenko. Of course not, right? The thing is, I wonder whether he's going to have the same sort of energy that he had when he was saying he wanted to go up and fight George Kambosos for all the marbles in the weight category above. I mean, you're in line to fight for all the marbles in your own weight category. So whether he's right to believe that George Kambosos is a weak link, a weak king or not, is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is he clearly believes it. Well, let's see if he has the same sort of energy now when he's going up against one of the pound for pound best fighters in the world, right? It's a massive opportunity for Shakur, and I have to ask, what is the motive of Bob Arum here? I can understand the motive of steering him away from Oscar Valdez, right? Oscar Valdez is a huge cash cow, potentially. Mexican-American, heavy-handed, power puncher, exciting to watch. You can see why they would want to build him up as a star. But if you're putting Shakur Stevenson in against Lomachenko, is that because you don't necessarily think Shakur Stevenson's a big sort of financial draw, and you're thinking, look, worst case scenario, if Vasyl Lomachenko wins the fight, that catapults him back onto everybody's lips as an elite level fighter. Don't get me wrong, you and I know that he's still elite, but since losing to Teofimo Lopez, he hasn't been branded about in the same way, has he? You know, the Four Kings are seeking to almost ignore him. Is this an opportunity for Vasyl Lomachenko to catapult himself back into that category? Or alternatively, is it a method of trying to catapult Shakur Stevenson into the big time? Is it possible that Bob Arum thinks that Loma has waned as a fighter, reaching the twilight of his career, and he thinks he's there for the taking? Personally, having watched the Nakatani fight, I don't see any signs of that. But perhaps Bob Arum thinks that, and he's thinking, listen, it's an opportunity for Shakur Stevenson to grab the torch. It won't be a passing over of the torch, his ability to steal the torch out of the hands of Vasyl Lomachenko. Let me know if that's what you think, and indeed how you read that whole situation in general. Let's talk about Deontay Wilder as well in the heavyweight division. He has made a statement which came a little bit out of the blue, something that I wasn't expecting personally. He says, I've accomplished my goals in this sport. I told my daughter when she was one that I'd be champion and I'd be able to support her beyond belief. I've done that. Should I give it a go one more time, or should I just retire and focus on other things? The first time I've heard Deontay Wilder even contemplate retirement. Listen, he's at an age now where I can completely and utterly understand it. Totally. This is a man who has, you know, reached the highest heights of the sport, been in some massive pay-per-view fights, took a hell of a beating in the last couple of fights. Yes, it was a great fight, the third one, competitive. He dished out a hell of a beating too. But the punishment he absorbed over the last two fights is the sort of punishment that, God forbid, a million times could come back to haunt a man down the line. And the one thing a fighter should always seek to do is, yes, build a legacy if you can. Yes, definitely make lots of money. Otherwise, what's the point of being in this sport, to be honest with you? The amount you give to the sport, you should be aiming to ensure that you've secured yours and your family's financial futures. But thirdly, you want to leave with your faculties intact, without absorbing any long-term damage, so that you can actually enjoy the fruits of your labor. So good luck to Deontay Wilder, whatever he wishes to do. From a boxing perspective, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that he is still one of the best heavyweights in the world and would still have an awful lot to offer the sport. I personally would love to watch Deontay Wilder in the ring again with a whole host of other heavyweights. But like I said, he has to consider his quality of life. So let me know where you stand on this. Do you want to see Deontay Wilder back in the ring again? If so, is it for selfish reasons? And would you understand if he walked away from the sport? Now, sticking on to the heavyweight division, let's talk about the WBC. They have ordered Dillian Whyte as the mandated opponent for Tyson Fury. He must defend. They're in free negotiation period. If they do not negotiate a price at this point, it will then go to purse bids. This is fantastic for the sport of boxing, in my humble opinion. I know Tyson Fury's been saying, I've earned the right to do whatever I like. You have, indeed. You have established yourself as an elite level fighter, and you can do whatever you want. But if you're going to choose to do what you want, you have to give up your belt. That's the reality. A champion has duties, and Dillian Whyte has earned his shot at the heavyweight title, and he deserves it. Now, with regards to the purse bids, I can imagine this getting very, very messy, because Frank Warren has been saying that because he lodged £300,000 as his last purse did Dillian Whyte, that he won't be entitled to much more than 15%, because they consider averages and things like that. That would be peanuts. He deserves an awful lot more than that. So we'll see what happens there. I can imagine this getting very messy, but I hope he gets a fair cut of the deal and we get to see a fantastic fight between fantastic fighters. And sticking along the lines of Frank Warren, some very surprising news. Lynn Arthur has been released from his contract with Frank Warren. Frank claims that had he won, he would have been pushed forward in the same way that Anthony Yarde has. But because he's lost, it was actually at the request of Team Arthur to do this, that they did not want to continue this deal, essentially, that there were very strained relationships in the build up to the Yarde and Arthur fight. Obviously, Arthur was talking about it being in Manchester and things like that. It ended up in London. Who knows if that played a significant role in all of this? I don't know, but where do you think Lynn Arthur goes from here? I can imagine him signing up to Sky, to be honest with you. There'll be a number of opportunities if he ends up going to Matchroom. You know, they've been working closely with... Is Spider Richards actually contracted to Matchroom? I know he performed with them when he fought Bivol and stuff. I don't know if he's contracted to them. I'm sure they'd be willing to host a fight like that. Of course, you've also got Buatsi, who... I can imagine him being in the ring with, and so on and so forth. So it'll be interesting to see where Lynn Arthur goes from here. But yeah, this came as a shock to me. I would have imagined Warren wanting to rebuild him, because he is a talented fighter, regardless of how he lost in the previous fight. He's a talented fighter, and I'm surprised that it's gone this way. On another note, Hamza Sheerez has graciously offered Bradley Skeete a rematch. I think it's a very intelligent PR move. I think he will have learned a lot from that first fight about facing an unstable fighter, unstable in terms of the target that he's offering, who is not necessarily the biggest puncher, nor is he the most durable. So even though it ended in very controversial circumstances, I believe he's going to let caution go out the window for this fight, and he's going to start throwing harder punches lower towards the body. Just as we said during the fight, he had to start doing, use throwaway jabs and feints, and then come inside and start throwing more powerful shots in that second and third phase to the body, and he would have a lot more success. I think he would have learned that in the last few rounds. So this is a smart move because it protects him in terms of his PR. It's a good PR move. You've had fighters, Billy Joe Saunders, a whole bunch of fighters putting up applauding emojis, fans applauding him. It's a smart move for a fight that I believe he should, if he goes about it in the right way, win in the rematch. And so as a result, it's a classy move, but a clever move from Hamza Sheerez. Had he been absolutely schooled, and there would have been no way of him coming back, and let's just say Skeete slipped and then he did what he did, I'm not so sure he would have given the rematch. Of course, I can't make that assumption because in a way it's questioning his integrity, and I don't mean to do that. But this is the sport of boxing, and people do need to consider their careers, and his handlers might not have let him go down that route. So that's something else you've got to think about. Discovery, the company that owns Eurosport, is reportedly in talks over a deal to partner with BT Sport and hijack the sale of Premier League rights to DAZN. Now, this would be a major blow for DAZN, because I'm assuming that for them to continue to invest in the sport of boxing the way they have been investing, they would require the revenue that would come in from Premier League football. So it'll be interesting to see, if they were to fail in this bid, what it would mean for the future of boxing on the DAZN platform, and as a result, the future of boxing as a whole. If we do want to see the end of pay-per-view in boxing, essentially the end of pay-per-view in boxing, I do think DAZN will need to be successful in winning the Premier League rights here. Otherwise, I just can't see how they're going to be able to sustain their current situation. Let me know what you think about that. And finally, by now, I'm sure you're all aware that Jake Paul will not be fighting Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury has pulled out with a rib injury and a bacterial chest infection. And it looks like Tyrone Woodley will be stepping up to have the rematch with Jake Paul. I am interested to know whether this no knockout clause in the contract, an allegation made by Clarissa Shields, if I remember correctly, if there is any truth to it. Because if so, it really does take away from the spectacle of watching these Jake Paul and Logan Paul fights, doesn't it? Whereas, you know, he dropped him heavily last time. It makes it a lot more interesting this time. You know, you wonder, oh, okay, is he going to put his foot on the gas a little bit earlier now, really let go of his hands, try and get him out of there? If that clause exists, then ultimately it's just about who's going to be busier, really, isn't it? It's about stamina. I'll throw lots of lighter punches, but I'm not allowed to hurt you, basically. It's theatre. So let me know if you've got any information on this in the comment section down below. Be careful that you don't make outlandish comments and leave yourself open to any sort of legal action. Okay, everything is allegedly, unless you know for a fact. Finally, Tyson Fury has threatened the BBC. He said that he does not need any verification or any award, so they have to take him off of the Sports Personality of the Year. Otherwise, he will be speaking to his solicitors. He said, give it to somebody who needs it. I don't need it. We all know who the Sports Personality of the Year is anyway. I know who I am and what I've done for the sport. I have the love of the people, which means more to me than all the awards in the world. To anyone who supports me, don't vote. Now, this is a rivalry that harks back to the days of, I guess you could call it the Tyson Fury witch hunt, when he was alleged to have said certain things, which in my opinion were twisted at the time. They were twisted to alter the motive of the man, and they were actually twisted in terms of what he actually said. The meaning of what he said was twisted, and it happened consistently. And you had the likes of Jessica Ennis, who had to come out and actually say, well, no, to be honest with you, on the night, I hope I look nice. And she had to sort of, I thought it was really good of Jessica Ennis at the time to end the speculation in a sense of what he meant, for instance, when he was referring to Jessica Ennis. So there was an awful lot going on there, and he clearly still holds a bit of a grudge, a bit of a glimpse back to the old Tyson Fury, the Tyson Fury that I found a lot more entertaining and a lot more real, to be honest with you. And talking of real, Brian Jennings put out a tweet which everybody needs to hear and take heed of. He said, I'm tired of people associating size and physical strength with masculinity. It doesn't help. You only appear masculine, but it's more to it than that, and that's the problem. And he's 100% right, and I tweeted him back to say, yes, masculinity is about conduct, spirit, and mental strength. A frail old man can be masculine, and a muscular athlete can be a coward. That's not a word I use, but we'll use that here. That has been clear that's never been clearer than over the last couple of years with all that's going on in the world. And he replied to say, exactly, he has conducted himself brilliantly, Brian Jennings, over the last couple of years. And that's another tweet where everybody needs to take heed and really think about what it means to be a man. It's not just about physical strength, it's about who you are on the inside. It's about your morality, your conduct, your spirit, and your ability to be strong in the face of public pressure. Let's leave it at that. Thanks for watching, everyone. Chat to you soon. Take care and God bless.